The invitation arrived in an elegant cream-colored envelope sealed with gold lettering. It was for the Boston Children's Hospital annual charity gala. The kind of event I had only seen in magazines, not something I thought I'd ever attend. At 34, I worked as a project manager at a nonprofit, living a steady if uneventful life. When my director asked me to attend as one of the organization's representatives, I was both honored and nervous. I didn't own the kind of gown such an event demanded, so I rented one from a boutique downtown. It was floor-length deep navy, with a zipper that ran from the lower back all the way up to the neckline. It fit beautifully, except for one problem. I couldn't zip it up by myself. That's where the trouble, or rather, the story began. My neighbor David had lived across the hall for 3 years. He was 37, a software engineer who often worked from home. We had developed an easy friendship, borrowing sugar, chatting in the lobby, helping each other carry groceries. David was the kind of friend who was dependable, but never intrusive. If my car wouldn't start, he'd check the battery. If he was baking, he'd leave cookies at my door. Our friendship was steady, simple, and uncomplicated. Until that night. It was the evening of the gala. My hair was styled, my makeup done, and I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment, the dress hanging loosely on my shoulders. I tugged at the zipper, stretching my arm as far as I could, but it stuck halfway up my back. Frustrated, I exhaled. Then, without thinking too much, I texted David. "Hey, random request. Could you help me zip up my dress? I can't reach it." Almost instantly he replied, "Sure. On my way." When I opened the door, he stood there in jeans and a casual button-down, his expression curious but kind. "No judgment," I said, cheeks flushed. "I tried everything. This zipper is impossible." He chuckled. "No worries. Turn around." And just like that, a simple favor turned into something unexpectedly delicate. As I turned, I felt the cool brush of his fingers at the small of my back. He tugged the zipper slowly, carefully. It should have been nothing, just fabric and metal. But in the quiet of that moment, with his hands so close, I felt the air shift. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved beyond what was necessary. But the silence carried weight. The kind of weight that comes when you realize a boundary you never thought about is suddenly visible. When the zipper reached the top, I turned back around. His eyes flicked away quickly, as if he'd been caught looking at something he shouldn't. "There," he said, clearing his throat. "All set." I smiled awkwardly. "Thanks. I owe you one." "Don't mention it," he replied. But his voice wasn't quite as steady as usual. At the gala, everything sparkled. Chandeliers, champagne, polished conversations. I smiled, shook hands, and made small talk with donors. But in the back of my mind, I kept replaying that moment in my apartment. The quiet, the closeness, the sudden awareness of something fragile between David and me. It wasn't attraction, not exactly. It was the temptation of crossing a line. The temptation to let a small, intimate moment reshape something that had always been platonic. And that realization unsettled me. When I got home late that night, I found David sitting on the steps outside our building, scrolling on his phone. "You look like you survived," he teased, standing as I approached. "Barely," I laughed. "Too much small talk." There was a pause. Then I said quietly, "Thanks again. For earlier." He shrugged, but I could see the faintest hint of a smile. Like I said, no big deal. But it was a big deal. Not because of what happened, but because of what almost did. The next day, I knocked on his door. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded, stepping aside to let me in. "I just want to say," I began. "Last night was strange. Not bad, just, it made me realize how easily something small could blur boundaries." He nodded slowly. "I felt it too. And I don't want things to get weird between us." "Me neither," I said. "I value our friendship too much." For a moment, we just sat in that truth. Then relief softened his face. "Good," he said finally. "Because you're stuck with me as your neighbor for at least another year." We both laughed, the tension dissolving. Over time, the moment became just that, a moment. It didn't define us, didn't alter our friendship. If anything, it deepened it. Because when you face a boundary and choose to honor it, you build trust. And trust is worth more than curiosity. Looking back, I realized that night wasn't about a zipper, or a dress, or even temptation. It was about awareness. About realizing that even in the closest friendships, there are lines that deserve respect. When I asked David for help, he said yes without hesitation. When the moment grew heavier than either of us expected, we stepped back instead of forward. And that choice didn't weaken us, it strengthened us. Because in the end, true respect isn't about what you could do. It's about what you choose not to.